I first want to acknowledge the tourism and hospitality sector for the fantastic reaction to yesterday's announcement. It's an exciting opportunity and one which I'm excited to help drive so this really important sector can thrive and grow. In terms of next steps, I intend to have more to say in the near future about the first funding opportunities through the package. Obviously, major events and international acts have captured a lot of attention over the last 24 hours, but there are also exciting times ahead for tourism. Our first announcements in the coming weeks are likely to focus on boosts for cycle trails, important economic drivers in many parts of regional New Zealand. Other announcements will follow before the end of the year. In Auckland, as the Prime Minister has said, we're aware that the sector has faced challenges in terms of securing acts for their venues. Today, Minister Bishop and I are outlining the government's position on boosting Eden Park's status as a major events venue and starting an investigation into changing local rules which could be holding it back. Eden Park, with a seating capacity of about 50,000 seats, is New Zealand's largest major events stadium. Concerts and major sporting events held there inject millions of dollars into the Auckland economy from locals and visitors alike. But current planning rules could be holding Eden Park back from doing even more. Last summer, Auckland's economy received a boost of nearly $33 million from several big concerts. We want to see more events like this, but we need to make sure our planning rules are fit for purpose to support them. In the case of Eden Park, we've heard that there are local rules and constraints that could be restricting its ability to host events. For example, the park is allowed no more than 12 concerts per year, which can only take place on certain days of the week, which can only have a maximum duration of 5 hours and have to be finished by 11 p.m. on weekdays. There can be no more than 4 concerts in a 4-week period. Sporting events face many barriers as well. The stadium is currently not allowed to host more than 25 nighttime sporting events per year. They can only be between 7:30 and 9:30 p.m. on weekdays, except for cricket, which can go until 10 p.m. Sporting events can't take place on Sunday evenings. And despite the stadium's huge capacity, conferences can't have more than 2,000 people. So we're announcing that Minister Bishop will lead an investigation into whether these rules around events at Eden Park are negatively impacting economic growth, with the potential to make direct changes to these rules if it is found that they are. This investigation will be conducted under the new regulation-making power in the Resource Management Act, recently passed into law through the Resource Management Consenting and Other System Changes Amendment Bill. Of course, there will be steps and safeguards associated with this investigation. The Minister must investigate the impacts of the provisions and whether specified statutory criteria are met, and produce a publicly available report. He would then report to Cabinet with the findings for a final decision on any changes to the Auckland Unitary Plan. Further details will be announced in the coming weeks. More broadly, we are genuinely excited about the opportunities ahead for New Zealand, for Auckland and for Eden Park, and we look forward to sharing these opportunities and the best of the Kiwi experience with the world. Back to you, Prime Minister.
Well, thanks, Louise. I was reflecting yesterday and thinking that the proposition on infrastructure emerging in Auckland is pretty exciting. We're going to have an upgraded airport, a new cruise terminal, CRL, stronger transport links, certainly the International Convention Centre and Eden Park, hopefully with more flexibility to be able to do more events. The fact that we're spending more flexibly and a more competitive spend, actually going out there, hustling, hunting for these events and attractions to bring to New Zealand is really important. And then this work today to look at any process issues or settings that we can change in order to remove barriers or impediments to securing those events is actually very important. Look, why don't we take questions first and foremost around major events, and then we'll get to other general issues of the day.
Sorry, Craig. One of the obstacles to events at Eden Park in the past has been complaints from residents, some of them quite high profile. What do you say to them?
Well, there'll be a range of views, I imagine, amongst the resident community. I think, I've observed people who are also very happy to have those events that live in that area as well. So, there'll be a range of views. But look, what we're doing here is, under the new legislation, the new RMA Act, the Minister has powers to commence an investigation that will lead to a report that then is consulted on with the public and also with Council, and then Cabinet makes a decision.
You got a fight with Helen Clark?
Sorry?
For a fight with Helen Clark?
Well, I'm sure Helen Clark has views on lots of many different things, as we see. But the bottom line is we are up for making sure we get economic growth. And let's just remember, Auckland's a city of 2 million people. In New Zealand, Eden Park is a major 50,000 capacity event centre, essentially. And I don't want New Zealanders missing out on events and activity and economic growth that other states of Australia may get. And we don't want them getting that.
Sorry? Why do we have to go through a whole investigation? You sound pretty keen on making these changes. Why can't you just...
Well, they're not predetermined. It's a question of we've had, as Louise read out there, some things that look like, things that are impediments. We don't want to be in a situation where we're making, for example, if you want to bring a rugby league event to Eden Park to play back into the NRL in Australia, you're going to have to be able to kick that game off at 9:30 at night, not in order to make 7:30 TV rights. So, those are the sorts of things that, and we don't want to miss out on an opportunity that would actually bring Australians to New Zealand to watch rugby league if there was an opportunity to do something like that. So, the process and why we gave the Minister powers under the new Resource Management Act is to actually officially launch what's called an investigation, generate a report, have consultation with the Council and with the public, but then that comes to Cabinet and Cabinet makes that decision. And that's because it's in the interests of New Zealand economically, either a national or regional interest to advance economic growth, and that's a good thing.
You were talking about this back in January.
Sorry, hang on, just go to Benedict.
You were talking about this back in January. You were calling on Auckland Council to change the rules so they could have more events there. Did nothing happen there? Is it why you're having to go down this route now? Or?
No, in fairness, Auckland Council has expanded, as I said at the time, from 6 concerts, I think, a year up to 12 concerts a year. What we've done is we've done a major rethink ourselves to say, look, 15 years of an approach on major events has proved not to be as competitive as it needs to be. That's why we benchmarked our spending and our $70 million package against what we see in Queensland. But equally, also with the new RMA Act coming through, there are particular powers for the Minister that he needs to exercise with caution and obviously appropriately. To say, look, if there are regulatory settings being generated by local government that actually are getting in the way of us securing economic activity and growth, those are things that we're up for making sure that we make it as easy as possible. It's no different from our approach to what you've seen in supermarkets and the work that Nicola led around making sure that we've done everything we possibly can to make it as easy as possible, and that having hunted for an event internationally, having made the case for why it should come to New Zealand, then to lose it because we've got some local rule that actually stops that from happening, that's not really what we want to see. So, Chris will launch the investigation. We'll get a good report out of all of that. We'll get a good engagement with the Council. But as I said, the Council's, Wayne Brown's done his part by doubling the amount of concerts initially. If we think there's more to do, we'll have those conversations with them too.
Would you personally like to see no caps at all on sports games or concerts? Just get rid of the cap altogether?
There'll need to be some, but there is real inconsistency. I mean, Louise read out a laundry list of things that you just sort of sit there and go, okay, well, if I'm trying to win an event off out of somewhere in the world and get them turned on to New Zealand first and foremost, get them to understand the proposition that's here, why it's great that they bring it to this country rather than some other country, to have something like that get in the way of what's the definition of a nighttime event, which varies by sunset, as I understand it, in the local rules. All of those sorts of things are just they're things that we've done to ourselves that we just got to make sure they're common sense, that there's some flexibility there, and that they're things that don't preclude us from securing world-class events here in New Zealand. We have an international convention centre that's opening. We're going to have an Eden Park with 50,000 seat capacity. We've got money going into it like we haven't had before. We've got a team that's going to be really on the balls of their feet out there hunting and hustling for activities and events to bring to the country, and we don't want to lose it over poor process and poor regulatory settings.
Minister Upston, a few months ago you said, quote, "We need to be realistic about whether concerts generate economic value for New Zealand. Some may generate an economic boost for the region, however overall the profit tends to go overseas." Have you changed your mind?
Look, the reality is what we're doing with this event attraction is trying to get a wide range of events. One of the big frustrations that I've heard from Eden Park is not just about concerts, but about festivals, about other shows, about kind of unusual expos that they could potentially hold there. If you look at conferences, to have a restriction of 2,000 people is ridiculous when we have the capacity to host more. And when the NZICC opens, they will be absolutely going for conferences and conventions in the 3,000 sort of mark. Often they'll want to have an off-site event, and it would be a bit unusual to then not be able to use Eden Park. We want to maximise the flexibility that we have at Eden Park. So it's for concerts, it's for sporting events, it's for expos, festivals, shows, all sorts of things, to ensure that we're bringing more visitors and more economic activity to Auckland and across the country.
Do you believe concerts have a small economic effect, if any? Or
well, the events that I listed yesterday, $33 million worth of economic impact into Auckland, so absolutely. If you think back to last concert you went to, think about how busy the bars and restaurants, the accommodations often booked out, people are shopping, they're away for a weekend on holiday. All of those things are direct economic impact locally, and that's what we want to maximise.
Minister Upston, is there any plans to have Matatini as a premium tourism attraction, given that it does generate a lot of income for whatever little hair that they are in? And is there any plans for a bespoke stadium for Te Matatini?
Well, the whole purpose of the announcements yesterday in terms of Event Boost would be to ensure that there are a wider range of events that could qualify for support. And that's exactly what it's about. It's about making sure that we don't have really tight rules about what can be accepted and what can't. It might be a gallery exhibition, it could be a sporting event, it could be a cultural event, and we know what a massive impact they have in the towns and cities that host them.
If you don't get the changes that you want, or the caps removed, or the NIMBYs who live around it don't want to have concerts or whatever, what next? Will you consider building a national stadium somewhere, or moving it somewhere else, or making Christchurch the premier venue? Like, what do you do if you can't attract?
Well, look, I mean,
being annoying.
Yeah, look, the first thing I'd say is under the new Resource Management Act we passed just, I think, last month, that does give the Minister powers and Cabinet ultimately a decision-making ability to determine what those settings, what those rules will be. That's why, we formally launched what is very formal language, an investigation. The report is generated. There is a consultation conversation, obviously, with Auckland Council in this case, and residents and the public. But ultimately, it gives us powers to say if this is an event that's in the regional, it's going to advance regional economic growth and opportunity, it's going to advance national economic growth and opportunity. Those are things that we've got to say yes to, as I keep saying to. So, but I think your point's a fairly good one, which is that if you now just take a step back and start to look at the infrastructure emerging across New Zealand, you're going to have, Louise and I had the great privilege of touring the New Zealand International Convention Centre yesterday. That is a truly world-class event that will attract, corporates, it'll attract small businesses in New Zealand that can hold events there. It'll be, create a massive auditorium. There's everything we need there to be able to go out into the world and say we have world-class infrastructure that we want you to bring you and your people and your teams to experience. But between the new stadium emerging in Christchurch, the convention centre down there, which has been going incredibly well, Christchurch has got a great proposition as well. And across the country, I think, and we want to make sure Eden Park, yes, 50,000 seat capacity, we want to make sure that's as available as possible.
Your Helen Clarks and your other bookworms and other people who don't like duff music or crowds, you could override their concerns and go, you know what, thank you, we've listened to you, but we've got the power to do this.
Well, we do have powers under the new Resource Management Act because, as I said at the beginning of the year, we are going to say yes to things in this country, not no. And I'm not sitting here as Prime Minister of New Zealand letting opportunities go by while states of Australia take them because we're not best dressed and ready to go. We have the infrastructure, we have now competitive spending, and I expect the process and the settings to be as common sense and as sensible as possible so that we don't lose events having, it's a bit like going fishing. You've got to put the bait on the hook, you've then got to get the fish on the hook and you've got to land it in the boat. And I don't want to lose it somewhere between being on the hook and not in the boat.
Prime Minister, can I just...
Prime Minister, are you
Eden
concerned
Park.
about
Sorry.
are you concerned about the breach of democratic process by the omission of Māori candidates' profiles from electorate booklets in 3 electorate areas, South Wairarapa, Opotiki and Whanganui?
Sorry, we're still talking major events?
Sorry,
Because we'll move to general. Can I come back to that issue? I just want to close out major events before we move on to topics.
Yeah, thanks. On Eden Park, they say that they need 110 million from the government to put in new seating for the Cricket World Cup. Is that something that you will commit to, or another impediment that you could remove for them securing that event?
It hasn't been a conversation that we've had at Cabinet. I mean, our real focus has been making sure that we retool, reset major events and our approach to major events, as we've just announced. That's not something we've had a chance to consider or think through at this point in time.
Something that you would consider, if there's infrastructure issues there that are standing in the way of securing a major event like the Cricket World Cup, or making sure that runs smoothly, is that something that the government...
Well, we're a government that's open to having conversations and listening and understanding what we can or can't do as a result of that. But I just say, initially, we already have a facility there that's not being utilised today as it currently stands. And given some of the stuff that we've seen, I think it's appropriate that we launch that investigation to look into it.
Can I just want to return to Jamie's question from earlier, which kind of touches on your discussion with Lloyd as well, around why not just move forwards with this? You do, the more that you both speak, the more you sound really convinced by removing some of these barriers. I think that Minister Upston, you described one of them as ridiculous there. Why waste time with an investigation if you are already certain of what...
Well, if we're going to override local rules, it's really important that we have a good process around that, and that's what the new legislation enabled that we passed last month or so, and that's exactly what we're doing. We want to follow a good process, and if we're going to override local rules, I think it's important we do that.
Even if the consultation comes back, residents say we don't want you to do this, and you say, but we are a government that's going to say yes, so we're going to do it regardless.
Well, we're going to listen. We're going to engage in that consultation for sure. But what I'm saying is we have powers under the Act to make that decision ultimately. I think we've been working very constructively with Auckland Council and with the Mayor. There'll be a range of views within the residents, I'm sure. There are some residents that love having the events close by and all the activity that goes with that. There's lots of residents that have businesses in the area, in the vicinity, think Kingsland and all the pubs that are there, all the other eateries and restaurants and all the other stuff that's going on. So there'll be a range of views, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, we are going to say yes or no to stuff, and we're going to get things moving. And so you need a hard decision, and ultimately we can make that as Cabinet after considering that consultation.
And can I just add, as someone who used to live very close to Eden Park, it is one of the most exciting places to live. And when you move into that area, there are sports events and lots of things happening at Eden Park. It's part of the attraction. So I know very personally the impact, and it's fantastic. It's great.